Hello everyone, and hopefully you found lesson 1 and 2 okay. And here's your third period of higher PE for the week. Now what we're trying not to do is give you lots of assignments in these early lessons in the week from periods 1 to 5, and your last period of the week will be when we give you the time to complete a small assignment to see how well you've captured the work that we've been doing over the week. So here we go. Today's lesson is on feedback. We're continuing just to do overarching kind of concepts in higher PE because we can't move on to the physical factor at this moment in time. So this will help you in the exam without a doubt. So we're looking at feedback. So your learning intentions for today is, by the end of the lesson, I will know and understand what feedback is. By the end of the lesson, I will know and be able to describe when I've received different types of feedback. By the end of the lesson, I will have attempted to explain what effective feedback is. Right. So what is feedback? It's basically information which is used as a basis for improvement. It's information. And in higher PE, we use it to try and improve and learn from it and move forward. Continuing our introduction here. So, information collected at the data gathering stage provides feedback on your performance levels in each of the 4 factors. Receiving this information is extremely important as it alerts you to what you're doing well, what needs improvement. Once you know this, you can make suitable adaptations to start progressing. And there is our cycle of analysis there. And right at the start of the cycle of analysis, this is when we're getting our first piece of feedback here. We're collecting data. So right from the start of our theory, we are getting feedback right away. Types of feedback. Feedback is an important part of gathering data and developing performance in higher physical education. Feedback can be divided into 2 different types. This is intrinsic and extrinsic feedback. We're going to look further into them now. Intrinsic feedback. Intrinsic feedback is the physical feel of the movement as it's being performed. It is what is felt by the performer as they execute a skill or performance. Intrinsic feedback can be very useful across the 4 factors. Thoughts and feelings on how a performance went are crucial to some aspects of mental and emotional factors. For mental factors such as anxiety and emotional factors like happiness, there is no quantifiable or numerical way for a coach to measure these factors without taking the thoughts and the feelings of the performer into consideration. This is a reason why a large number of data collection methods for these factors use questionnaires to provide qualitative data, so that feedback-based data from yourself. During a performance, thoughts of fear and anxiety may occur, such as, I feel scared before taking the second serve. This is intrinsic information telling the performer that they are struggling to control their anxiety. Continued. Thoughts and feelings also play an important role in some social factors. For example, team dynamics. Although the coach can see that their team get along, there is no quantifiable or numerical way for this to be measured. Therefore, the thoughts and feelings of the performers are taken into account through questionnaires, like our Adapted Youth Sport questionnaire. You can see an example on the screen here, very like that. Performers may really like some teammates and dislike others. Where there are feelings of dislike, the performer will also intrinsically know reasons for this. Communicating these thoughts and feelings to their coach means that resolutions and ways to improve team cohesion can be worked on with an aim to boost performance. Intrinsic feedback is particularly useful for aiding performance in the physical factor, particularly when it comes to skilled performance. A performer can gain instant feedback on how a movement felt. This is often referred to as kinesthetic feedback. For example, Many football players will say, "I knew the shot was in as soon as I hit it. It just felt right." More importantly, however, some performers receive in-depth kinesthetic feedback that tells them why something did not go well. In golf, kinesthetic feedback is prevalent when driving. An example of this is that a performer may feel off balance during their swing. Knowing this specific information is good, as it can be specifically addressed by opening their stance. But it's key to keep in mind, though, that such kinesthetic feedback for physical factors is often only helpful if you're a high-level performer, because only high-level performers know how these skills and physical things should feel, unlike someone who's perhaps just starting an activity. Task. Describe a time where you received feedback on two different factors in sport. For example, one physical and social. This is for 2 marks. And remember, for a description, you need 3 points of description to get 1 mark. So 3 points of description for one physical example and 3 points of description for one social example. And let's go with internal feedback. When did you know something went well, or when did you know that something wasn't going well from your own internal feedback? Pause the video here to complete the task. Make sure you complete the task in your jotter on a piece of paper and keep it throughout the week and in your records. You're going to require this work for your final lesson, so don't double up your work for that final lesson. Extrinsic feedback. Feedback can also come from a variety of different external sources, such as a coach, teacher, and/or teammate. Depending on the context, there are differing ways this information can be provided. These are verbal, video or visual, and written. Verbal feedback is often delivered immediately after the performance. It will involve a coach or teammate telling a performer the strengths and weaknesses in their performance. For example, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola, who should be in a picture below but I couldn't get it to work, will tell his players how to improve their decision making for the mental factor. Such verbal feedback can also happen during an activity. This might not be as helpful, or it might be helpful at the time if you've had a chance to listen to it. Visual feedback. Extrinsic feedback can be provided visually using video. Video lets performers watch their performance back and highlights their strengths and weaknesses. This is often compounded by watching a model performer perform the same skill and noting similarities and differences between performances. When learning how to perform the overhead clear in badminton, performers often watch their own performance video against criteria provided by a model performer to spot certain subroutines they need to develop. We've done this in our Higher and National 5 courses, so you should be able to give an example of how you gain visual feedback. Perhaps it was on your own phone, or perhaps it was on the teacher's iPad. Written feedback. A coach or teacher can provide a performer with written feedback. The coach may write down both the positives and the negatives of a performance. A big benefit of this feedback is that it can be stored as a permanent record and viewed again in the future to see if improvements have been made. In the example above, the performer can see the need to work on their etiquette in the social factor. Plans can now be put in place to develop this, and comparisons made with future feedback to see if progress has been made. Take a moment to read this feedback on the right. Task time. Describe a time where you received verbal feedback in sport. It doesn't have to be in school, it could be outside of school as well. Describe a time where you received visual feedback in sport. 1 mark. Describe a time where you received written feedback in sport. 1 mark. Now remember, it's 1 mark for each, 3 points of description for each. Put it on a piece of paper. You're going to need it later in the week. Pause the video here. 3, 2, 1. Now we have all these different types of feedback, but we need to know what makes effective feedback. The way feedback delivered from an extrinsic source will have a bearing on whether it's effective or not. When delivering feedback, the acronym STOVE can help you consider the following 5 things. S. Source. Who provides the feedback? Timing. T. How soon after the performance is the feedback provided? O for order. Does the coach provide the performer with positives before the negatives? Volume. How much feedback is being provided? Information. Does feedback include information on strategies on how to improve a weakness? Moving on. We're looking more in depth to these things that make feedback effective. Source. Ask yourself, who provided the feedback? If it was a coach, is it likely to be accurate and reliable due to their high knowledge levels? This would make performers more likely to trust the information provided and implement their next steps with intent. However, if the information is provided from a teammate, the reliability of the feedback may be questioned due to their knowledge levels not being as high as that of a coach, and therefore, if put in place, may not be effective. Timing. How quickly after the performance was the feedback provided? The quicker the feedback is provided after a performance, the more sense it will make to the performer. This is because the performance will be fresh in their head and they can remember the examples the coach is referring to. This would then allow the performer to make more sense of the incoming information and understand what they need to improve. And ultimately, it would be more effective. Order. Does the coach provide the performer with positives before negatives? Providing the performer with positives before negatives will give the performer a confidence boost as it lets them know where some strong aspects of their performance are. It will also make them more open to hearing some of the negative aspects of performance, which will then allow them to fully understand why these areas were weak. However, if the coach provides the negatives first, it could lead to the performer lacking confidence and being demotivated to listen. This would be detrimental to their progress as they would miss out on hearing advice on how to improve. Have a look at the picture next. Moving on. V. Volume. How much feedback was provided? A good coach will provide feedback in short, sharp bursts. This will help a performer as they can easily remember the positives and negatives of their performance. However, if a coach was to provide too much feedback, a performer could become bored and lose concentration. This would result in them not taking in information. This would decrease their chances of improving further. I. Information. Does the coach provide information or strategies on how to improve a weakness? This is a crucial part of the feedback process as it goes beyond saying something was weak. It also provides a path forward to improve the weakness. In addition, when providing positive feedback, a coach should provide information on why it was good. This will allow the performer to keep doing this and maintain this strength. Task. Your final task for today, on a piece of paper, make sure you do it and keep it. Explain what is required to make feedback effective. Now this is based on STOVE. So you're just going to attempt to do this and try and make sense of explaining why this is effective. I've given you all the points here. So you would say for the first point, source. To make feedback effective, you would have to consider the source. And then the example for that would be, for example, you would want your feedback to come from a coach, as they have a high level of knowledge. Then meaning, and obviously you can go back in this video, you want to see the impact of it being from that high level information coach. Because it'd be more trustworthy, meaning it's more trustworthy, and you're likely to implement it as a result and be effective. So there's your first example there. And then you're going to do the same for the other T, O, V, and I, so the rest of the Toby. So timing, order, volume, information. You can do this, give it a shot, and that's your lesson for today. Well done, everybody.